I am calling to order this hearing. This is a hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. And the time is 12:42 in the afternoon. And we are having this hearing, I want to say in person, but there might be some folks online who are testifying. But the in-person part is in room 412 of the Johnny Wilson Building. And this hearing is being broadcast on, or will be broadcast on the council's website, www.dccouncil.gov. The subject of this hearing, and this is actually the first of two hearings we're having today, the subject of this hearing is consideration of PR, Proposed Resolution 25-765, entitled the Zoning Commission Gwen Marcus Wright Confirmation Resolution of 2024. This nomination by the mayor was submitted to the council on May 3rd, 2024. And the purpose of this resolution is for the council to confirm the mayor's nomination to appoint Gwen Marcus Wright to the zoning commission to fill an unexpired term to end February 3rd, 2027. The zoning commission is charged with preparing, adopting, and subsequently amending the zoning regulations and zoning map for the district, and to do so in a means that is not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan for the national capital. The zoning commission also considers a variety of zoning cases such as planned unit developments, campus plans, and may consider sua sponte Board of Zoning Adjustment cases. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony or to afford an opportunity for the public to testify as to the fitness of this nominee, as well as for the committee to hear from the nominee. The record in this matter will be open for just under 2 weeks. The record will close at 5:00 p.m. on Monday, September 30th, 2024. Again, the record will close at 5 p.m. on September 30th, 2024. I have 3 witnesses who've signed up to testify before we hear from the nominee. Cheryl Court, who is Policy Director with the Coalition for Smarter Growth, William Jordan, and Alex Baca, who is with the DC Policy Center of, no, I misspoke, who is DC Policy Director at Greater Washington. Before anybody testifies, let me recognize my colleague, Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, in case you have a statement.
Thank you, Chairman. Very briefly, I appreciate you holding this hearing. All of our public witnesses today are Ward 1 residents, so I look forward to hearing from them. In short, I'm glad that the mayor finally sent down a nominee for this seat, which was vacant for more than 2 years. And that vacancy was incredibly unacceptable for a topic as important as zoning and a body as important as our zoning commission. I've had the opportunity to meet with our nominee to talk about her experience. I look forward to hearing her testimony today. I am always grateful to those who are willing to serve in these positions, which are tedious and challenging and very time consuming, but also incredibly significant to the future of the District of Columbia. With that, I look forward to hearing the testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember. And with that, I'm going to recognize witnesses in the order that I called. So Ms. Court, Cheryl Court, you are first.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Cheryl Court, and Councilmember Nadeau and members of the committee. My name is Cheryl Court with the Coalition for Smarter Growth. Please accept this testimony on behalf of our organization. We're the leading organization advocating for walkable, bikeable, inclusive, transit-oriented communities as the most sustainable and equitable way for the DC region to grow and provide opportunities for all. We wish to express our support for Gwen Wright to be appointed to the DC Zoning Commission. The Zoning Commission has had an unusually long vacancy, and we are gratified to have such a qualified candidate to fill this important position. My colleagues at the Coalition for Smarter Growth have had the opportunity to work with Ms. Wright in her previous positions, most especially as the planning director in Montgomery County. We have found her to be a thoughtful professional who is skilled at both developing land use policy and public engagement processes. We believe that DC will be well served by Ms. Wright's experience in equity planning, historic preservation, sustainability, and development review. Her professional planning career will provide complementary expertise to the Zoning Commission as we work to implement the 2021 amendments for the comprehensive plan. So we urge the council to approve her nomination. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
We don't need more passive and overly conservative groupthink. As an activist, neighbor, father, and member of the Park Morton Equity Team, I have spent the last several years challenging the Zoning Commission, in particular Chairman Hood, to be bold and aggressive in the creation and use of industry-leading racial equity lens and tools in the Commission's work. The chairman on multiple occasions has assured me and others that he was consulting with colleagues in Montgomery County and others with this objective in mind. I don't know if he met Ms. Wright, but the result has been a racial equity paper tiger, often floating in the winds of arbitrary and capricious winds of council deference. DC's Black families deserve a fighting chance. At least one zoning commissioner with the courage and freeness of mind to assure the use of racial equity lens and tools are about meaningful impacts for real families and real communities. Based on the current record, this doesn't seem that the nominee can help bring meaningful racial equity progress to land use in the district, especially for Black families like mine. How much? Okay, a few more minutes. So the second part, I just kind of shared some of my odyssey in dealing with the council, the mayor, the zoning commission when it comes to racial equity. And as you're aware, back in April of 2021, the initial plan presented, the RIA for that was it would exacerbate racial inequities in the District of Columbia. After working with CORE and putting in place some meaningful racial equity language, then it became that that the result would not be enough to disrupt the deep racial inequities in the District of Columbia. So my point is, if the zoning commission is not going to do deep racial equity, quality racial equity analysis, if the council and council members can prevent racial analysis happening to legislation or to processes, then we're back to a racial comp plan that just exacerbates the problem in the district. And that's where we are. We're a paper tiger of racial equity, and it's all political factors that are always interfering with a good job. So we need a commissioner who's willing to really push the boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Alex Baca.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Baca, and I am testifying on behalf of Greater Washington, where I serve as the DC Policy Director. We encourage the committee to confirm Gwen Wright's appointment to the Zoning Commission. Gigi Wash advocates for more housing, more affordable housing, fewer trips by car in the DC region, and the land use patterns necessary to enable more housing, more affordable housing, and fewer trips by car. Therefore, I spend a not insignificant amount of time watching zoning commission meetings, reading case records, and overall paying attention to the commission's business so as to determine what my organization can do to most effectively bring about the world we want to see. Gigi Wash does not, as a rule, testify on individual zoning cases. Since I joined our staff in 2019, we have only testified on cases that could have systemic ramifications for land use decision-making in the district or emblematic of the advancement of district policy that we also favor. As a result, we usually testify in support of zoning cases because the existing code and map do not allow for the world that we want to see and thus need to change. If an individual case meets the aforementioned criteria, we may take the rare step of organizing our supporters to participate in the Zoning Commission's deliberation process. We've done this around Chevy Chase, 1617U, and Dance Loft in the past 3 or 4 years. We strive to ensure that those who are participating in a rezoning process live near affected sites and would personally experience the impact of any change, which means exacting fairly extreme quality control over our basis participation rather than encouraging mass mobilization. We feel that this is a necessary strategy. Though zoning is not the only type of land use regulation, it is the one that most immediately impacts district residents' day-to-day lives. In the past decade, the exclusionary features of American zoning codes have become of larger interest to bureaucrats and hobbyist planners for their evident tendency to economically and racially segregate residents, drag economic productivity, prevent the construction of multifamily housing, and encourage sprawl. Though the Zoning Commission has, of course, experienced considerable public engagement more than once in its 104-year history, it is only recently that public comment on cases is motivated by a more existential national zeitgeist. Wright will join a commission that has at times struggled to meet its mandate in the face of the attention paid to its processes and decisions. The district is running out of places where new, denser development won't massively offend the sensibilities of nearby residents, but still has a housing shortage, entrenched economic, racial, and spatial segregation, and a widening racial wealth gap. To Gigi Wash, racial equity in zoning, in the district in particular, does require legalizing more housing, particularly in neighborhoods where very little has been built in recent memory. It is contingent on the allowance of different types of homes in every neighborhood, and it demands a transition away from the district's preferred strategy of sequestering density on major corridors or in new large partial projects so as to not too greatly ruffle homeowners' feathers. Amendments to the 2006 Comprehensive Plan in 2019 and 2021 opened the door for the Zoning Commission to redress some of the harms of exclusionary zoning through its decisions. It is, in our view, not quite comfortable with this reality or power yet. We hope that Wright, who navigated the Montgomery County Planning Department through the contentious Thrive 2050 process, might bring some confidence to the commission. Wright is a skilled planner, and the region has benefited from her talents. The district has lost 2 years of its own representation on a body that is partially federal, with one of our 3 seats to the federal government's 2 sitting unnecessarily vacant for over 2 years. We have willingly ceded power to our overlords. Wright will be a valuable addition to the commission given her experience, but her appointment is most urgent for the matters of our own self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. So I think I'm going to ask a couple of questions focusing on you, Mr. Jordan, because your testimony is in opposition to the nomination or just cautious about the nominee?
Whichever would be most effective, but really cautious is what I would say is that I wouldn't be against, but I don't think it's going to, from what I know of the record at this moment, is going to move us to where we need to be.
Well, in your statement, you're clearly critical of the zoning commission for, in your view, doing too little, if anything, with regard to advancing racial equity. So that's pretty clear in your statement. And you said regarding the nominee that you didn't see the phrase racial equity mentioned even once in her prepared statement. But beyond that, I didn't see specifics with regards to actions when she was with Montgomery County.
Right. And so I was doing my homework. I really ran out of time to really dig through that whole process. You know, it's hard enough keeping up with what's going on in the district. But what I did see and what I did that raised alarm, it kind of similar to what we saw here. And like I said, I have to be cautious what I say because I'm reading it. But there was a complaint that the office, their office or equivalent office of racial equity started evaluating the plan ahead of time and came to a conclusion that it would harm racial equity, as I understood it. And the response of the director and others was to rally around, you know, you're making it hard. You're not ready. It's so and so and so and so, sticking with the bureaucracy. And the point for me is racial equity has to be from sentence one. It should be a difficult process. It's a difficult problem. So as to wait until it's too late to have an impact, to have this difficult discussion, trade-off is a problem. And it's systematic of what I see here in the district. What I see from the zoning commission, but also in how the zoning commission interacts with the mayor and the council. And I give the example of the council basically creating a situation where it's ignoring its own core racial equity team because it may offend a particular council member. And so, you know, it's a problem. And somebody has to push it, and you need someone who's really gonna, within the bounds of the law, really push the edges. This should always be a contentious issue with any zoning land use decision this city makes going forward. It should be difficult. And when you look to the status quo to duck the problem, it's a problem.
Give me just a second. I do want to note that, and you probably had not seen this because we submitted questions to the nominee and received responses. I think we haven't made those, I don't think we've published those responses yet. We will. Well, they are online. Where she makes reference to during my tenure as planning director, we created an equity agenda for planning, which made sure that equity issues were considered in every product created by the planning department. et cetera. So may not have made that reference, may not have said anything about that in her statement. I haven't read the statement, but did speak to that. But you, when I asked you the last question, you made reference to, it wasn't clear to me whether it was a specific case in Montgomery County?
Well, no, it was a discussion I read where they were commenting on reviewing what they call Thrive 2025-2050. So the way I understand it, the plan went through their version of a racial equity analysis. And there was controversy as I read it on how that was handled and how the bureaucracy responded when they were criticized by that report. Now,
Criticized by what report?
their equivalent of a racial equity analysis.
Okay. So the proposal was the Thrive Montgomery 2050 plan.
Which I understand is their equivalent of a comprehensive plan.
And it was criticized by a racial equity analysis.
Correct.
And then the planning department, to
Right.
use your language, sort of maybe circled wagons.
Correct.
All right, I understand. Let me turn to my colleague, Councilman Nadeau, if you have any questions.
Well, you know, the audio cut out when Mr. Jordan was giving his testimony, so I was going to ask if he could give it all over again, but you got into it with the questions, so I think we're covered. Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to all these witnesses. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you. Thank you to each of the witnesses. I have written statements from each of you, Ms. Court, Ms. Baca, and Mr. Jordan. So thank you, and they will be part of the record. Then we will turn to the nominee, Gwen Marcus Wright, if you come forward. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and members of the committee. I'm Gwen Wright, and it's my pleasure to receive your consideration for my nomination to serve on the Zoning Commission. I'm grateful to Mayor Bowser for nominating me and honored to have this opportunity to serve the residents of our district. I am a 37-year resident of the district, and I have extensive professional experience that would be of great benefit to the Zoning Commission. I was the planning director in Montgomery County, Maryland for 9 years, from 2013 to 2022. In addition, I worked in Montgomery County as the countywide planning division chief and the historic preservation supervisor. My career has also focused on regulatory review during the 5 years that I worked in the city of Alexandria as the division chief in charge of development for the city. In the 9 years that I was the planning director in Montgomery County, we completed 27 master plans, a complete rewrite of our zoning code, an update to our general plan, which had not been updated for over 50 years, and the creation of a robust design excellence and placemaking initiative that's resulted in more exciting and better communities at all scales throughout the county. In 2017, my work on design excellence was acknowledged by the Potomac Valley chapter of the American Institute of Architects when I was awarded their highest honor, the Paul H. Key Medal for Architectural Advocacy. Through all my professional positions, I've had detailed experience in zoning issues, including, as mentioned, the comprehensive rewrite of the county zoning code during my tenure in Montgomery County, as well as review of regulatory development applications, administration of environmental and forest conservation laws, oversight of transportation planning documents, and development of complete street design guidelines. I also administered Montgomery County's robust historic preservation program, including providing all staff support to the Historic Preservation Commission. I worked extensively on housing issues, including completion of a major rental housing study, and an update to the county's inclusionary zoning law, which has been in place since 1974. During the time that I was co-chair of COG's Planning Directors Advisory Group, I assisted in the analysis of housing targets for the region and was proud to present the study along with Andrew Trueblood to COG members at their annual retreat. I also have an unparalleled commitment to equity in planning. During my tenure as planning director, we created for the first time an equity agenda for planning, which made sure that equity issues were considered in every product created by the planning department, and which involved all of our residents in the planning process. Our recently adopted update to the general plan, which has been mentioned as the first full update since 1964, included equity as one of the three major pillars in the document's vision, and the equity goals are included in every chapter of Thrive Montgomery 2050. I'm now retired, and I'm excited about the opportunity to use my professional experience and skills to give back to my adopted hometown, the District of Columbia. Over the past 37 years, I've been active in a wide variety of community activities, from serving as the HSA president at my children's elementary school, John Eaton, to being active with groups such as the Cleveland Park Historical Society, the Woodley Park, Cleveland Park Village, and the DC chapter of Girls on the Run. Now I look forward to helping my community by serving on the Zoning Commission. Moving forward, the skills that I can bring to the Zoning Commission include a comprehensive knowledge of zoning and planning issues, a strong grounding in housing, understanding of historic preservation, and most importantly, an ability to listen to different viewpoints and to make balanced decisions. The district has recently, 2021, updated its comp plan, and I believe it's an excellent document that I look forward to helping to implement through the work of the Zoning Commission. In conclusion, I am a dedicated district resident, a proven leader in the planning field who has conceived of and implemented groundbreaking master plans and major projects, and a strong believer in excellent urban design and architecture. My work experience gives me a great deal of technical knowledge, but it has also given me the privilege of working with many residents and stakeholders from all walks of life. I have strong skills in terms of listening to concerns and issues and finding solutions that take into account a diverse set of interests. My watchwords are excellence, integrity, creativity, and collaboration. I'm excited to bring my skills and ideas to the Zoning Commission. Thank you, Chairman Mendelson, for the opportunity to testify before this committee, and I'd be happy to respond to questions from you and from members of the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Wright, and thank you for your willingness to serve. So I do have some questions. A couple of them are prepared, some of them are not. And a couple of them are going to come from a perspective of just getting on the record some issues that have been raised or that I'm aware of. So you've lived in the district for 37 years
Yes.
in the same house? Not that that matters, but
No, I lived first in an apartment at 18th and Swan, and then in a condominium at 17th and Swan, and now at a house at 34th and Ordway.
okay. And you mentioned you've been active with a number of neighborhood issues and neighborhood school issues. My daughter as well went to John Eaton
At the same time as my daughter.
at the same time.
Yes.
Oh, did I know that? I did not know that. Let me see. Do you have a response to some of the testimony of Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Jordan's testimony, and I do want to reiterate that we made equity a major priority in Thrive Montgomery 2050. Again, we said this plan was focused on three foundations: equity, the economy, and environmental sustainability. And this was the first time that equity was made a primary focus in any major plan in Montgomery County. I had gone through the core organization training on equity issues. I understood how important those issues were, and I really insisted that the plan have a strong focus on equity. As we went through the process, as you can imagine with any kind of large general plan, it went through many evolutions. It was reviewed by our planning board, and they made their own changes and revisions. And then it went to the county council, who made their own changes and revisions, both in committee and with the full council. Between the time that it was at a committee in the council and the full council, there was a discussion about needing to have additional focus on racial equity, to have additional language that would strengthen the focus in the plan. And I do want to say we did not resist that. We basically tried to say that we thought we had done a lot to put equity in the plan, but the council wanted more, and they actually hired a consultant and added language developed by the consultant in the plan. And I think that that was beneficial. I think it actually added to the plan. So, you know, it was a long and drawn out process with a great deal of outreach, a great deal of input. There were a lot of different viewpoints about the future vision of the county, which is really what the general plan lays out. But I do want to really reiterate that equity was a part of that vision from day one. The actual words that were in the plan were added to and evolved as it went through our planning board and our council. I think the final product is a very strong one that really does focus on how decisions in the future of the county can be most equitable.
So what I heard from you, among other things, is that it wouldn't be accurate to say that you or your office circled the wagons and defended in light of the council. And although you didn't say this, it prompts me to ask, if the county council came up with more, does that suggest that you didn't come up with enough?
I guess it was our belief that we had come up with enough, but the council wanted more, and we did not in any way resist that. You know, again, I think that the language that the consultant hired by the council developed was it built on and further strengthened concepts and ideas that were already in the plan, but perhaps made them a little more explicit. And so, you know, as you're working on a large document, lots of folks add ideas and add ways of communicating those ideas in the document. And, you know, we appreciated the council's efforts to make the document as good as it could be, particularly on the equity issue, but on other issues as well. It is the council's document. They are the ones who ultimately vote to approve it. And so we were absolutely in support of them adding and strengthening any language in the document that they wanted.
So it's in my recollection, and I didn't look this up, but I just sort of have in my recollection, there was some controversy when you left Montgomery County.
Yes.
You want to speak to that?
Well, that's an interesting story, and I can give you the sort of Cliff Notes version of it. In June of 2022, I announced that I would be retiring in December of 2022. And I was retiring for a whole variety of reasons. It was 30 years that I'd worked there. I was turning 65. My son was graduating from college. It was a whole confluence of events that made it the right time for me to retire. And I had a wonderful set of senior staff who were ready to step up into leadership, more leadership positions. And I wanted them to have that opportunity. At the same time, in the summer of 2022, there was some discord within the board itself. There are 5 planning board members. The chair is a full-time paid position, and the other 4 members are part-time positions, paid positions. And all of them are appointed by the Montgomery County Council. There was some discord between the chair and the vice chair with a number of accusations being made about the chair. Unfortunately, in the late summer, early fall of 2022, my staff started to get pulled in to some of the disagreements. And I had staff who were being approached in their cubicles to try to generate complaints about the chair. I had staff walking into my office in tears because they felt upset and intimidated. And I was not happy about that. Obviously, I had worked hard to build up a really, really excellent staff, and I was proud of them, and I wanted to make sure they were not going to feel intimidated in their work lives. So I was approached by a reporter who asked me what was happening, and I thought I said somewhat tactfully, well, there are people who are unhappy with the chair of the planning board, but it's not my staff. And 24 hours later, the board met and fired me. I was an at-will employee, and they had absolutely every right to do that. That was on a Friday afternoon. On Monday, the county council called all 5 board members into a closed session to ask what was going on. And on Tuesday, the county council asked all 5 board members to resign. And on Wednesday, they did. So, I think that was pretty clear that my dismissal just a few months before my retirement was not viewed favorably by the county council. And ultimately, the new board, because the council had to appoint 5 new board members, ultimately that board has passed a resolution and forwarded a release that basically acknowledges that they regret how I departed, and that they think I made very significant contributions to Montgomery County over the 30 years I worked there. And they have recognized that by choosing to name our annual design awards ceremony award, the top award, as the Gwen Marcus Wright Award, which I was very touched for them to do. It was a recognition of a lot of the hard work that I've done. So yes, it was a messy departure, and it was a departure that was happening in any case. I was retiring in December, and I am sad that my departure was as messy as it was, but I think it has all straightened out.
Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Fruman passed on to me a letter that he received from some residents in Tenleytown It looks to me like it was a couple. But they
Yes,
asked about Moses Cemetery. Are you familiar with it?
I am, very much
And
so.
apparently the Post editorialized about, let me kind of look at this. Well, the Post editorial, how will the archaeological assessment be conducted, and will conducting it further disturb the graves? What kind of memorialization will take place? No matter what the courts say, the descendants of the interred should be at the center of these conversations. The residents who wrote this letter believe it's important that the council closely review these issues and calls upon Ms. Wright to explain her role in managing them as the council considers your nomination. So I'm guessing most folks in the district don't know anything about Moses Cemetery. So if you could just maybe speak to this?
Sure. Moses Cemetery actually was located in Tenleytown, in African-American community that existed in the Tenleytown area. When it was going to be redeveloped for some of the places we see at Fort Reno and some of the houses that we see in that area, the cemetery was actually moved to Montgomery County, to a piece of property along River Road. And it was there for about 40 or 50 years. And then it was desecrated. There was a new high-rise building built along River Road. Many of you may have seen it as you drive north on River Road. There's a radio tower and then a tall white high-rise residential building next to it. And when that building was built in the 1960s, the private developers desecrated that cemetery. And it was, from all reports, done in a totally egregious and horrible way. When I became involved with that area of the county, it was when we were looking at updating the West Bard master plan. And this was in about 2014, 2015. I think the final plan was approved in maybe 2016. In that plan, as with all of our plans, we actually include a section on the history of the area. And our staff, we have an excellent historic preservation and planning staff. I will give them kudos. We identified the fact that there had been an African-American cemetery in this location. So the plan was actually the first sort of modern acknowledgement of that cemetery, although, residents in the area may have known stories of the cemetery. Our plan actually acknowledged it. At that time, there was also a proposed development application that could have potentially involved the tall multifamily building. And at that point, we became very engaged with residents and descendants and members of the nearby Macedonia Baptist Church. And we made the decision to essentially not allow the portion of the land that was the tall high-rise building and the site of where the cemetery had been. We were not going to allow it to go forward in the regulatory application. And so we split the regulatory application to allow the portion on the other side of West Bard Avenue, where there now is a new giant grocery store and new housing being built, including senior housing. We basically split the application. And said that the high rise, which is actually owned by the county's Housing Opportunities Commission, which is our public housing agency, that, they needed to work with the community on both the ideas for how to approach an archaeological investigation of this land and potential memorialization in the future. At the same time, again, lots of things going on. A property on River Road came in for redevelopment as a self-storage facility. And that property actually had, backing up to it, one of the parcels of land that had historically been associated with the cemetery. So we, in that regulatory application, required the applicant to dedicate the parcel of land that had been associated with the cemetery to our Montgomery County Parks Department, with the idea that the Parks Department would work with the county's Housing Opportunity Commission to do an investigation of the land that had been historically associated with the cemetery. In addition, the self-storage facility that was being built along River Road, because it was near land that had again been historically associated with the cemetery, we required that they do very extensive archaeological work as they were doing any excavation for the self-storage facility. So they brought on a professional archaeological team plus a separate archaeologist who was expert in the identification and preservation of African-American cemeteries. And they literally on a weekly basis submitted their archaeological reports as to whether they found any evidence of burial sites. Again, this was the land not that had been associated historically with the cemetery, but it was adjacent to it. So we were being very cautious, trying to make sure that any land disturbance, even adjacent to the land associated with the cemetery, would be carefully studied through with professional archaeologists. Since that time, honestly, the Housing Opportunities Commission and the Parks Department have not undertaken any additional work. There is no land disturbance of the land that was historically associated with the cemetery. There is no development application pending that would disturb that land. Many elected leaders at every level from county to state to federal have met with and talked to this descendant group to understand their concerns, and has tried to move this effort to recognize and memorialize the historic cemetery forward in a positive way. My personal involvement sort of ended with the regulatory cases that I've mentioned. The director of parks sort of became the next person from our agency involved when the parcel of land was dedicated to the director of parks. But again, I know our county executive, our council members, our state delegates, our congressmen have all been very, very involved in trying to find a solution for this issue.
So to repeat back what I heard in summary,
A long story.
so the Moses Cemetery starts in Tenleytown, DC, but it is dislocated back in the 1920s, maybe, or 1930s to
Even a little
River
earlier.
Road in Montgomery County.
Mhm.
in the 1960s is ignored by a developer, maybe by county officials, don't know. And a high-rise is built on part of, but not all of that cemetery, desecrating graves. The next step is under you as planning director in Montgomery County, acknowledging that this cemetery was there. And so actually identifying that this is an issue, that this is a site that it has been partially desecrated. And then further development. There are disadvantages to virtualness.
Chairman, did
I
you
was
call
not
on me?
frozen. Yes, I called on you. I was not frozen.
Okay, yeah, the room was muted again for a minute for some reason. I don't know why.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you both very much. It's been great to listen into the dialogue thus far. Ms. Wright, how do you, I'm glad that you brought up the regional housing targets in your work with former OP Director Trueblood. One thing I've considered is whether there's a way to fold housing production targets into zoning commission decisions or the zoning code itself. Do you think that's a feasible strategy, and how would you go about those conversations on the zoning commission?
Well, I think that is a good idea. The District of Columbia, I'm proud, has been one of the few jurisdictions that has actually been meeting their housing targets. The other jurisdictions have not. And certainly the need for more housing of all types, but also specifically affordable housing, is a key issue that will be facing the zoning commission. And I think that we should continue to look at every opportunity to, I guess at this point, it would be to exceed the housing targets that had been set during our COG work. But I do think that all of us on the in the community have to really start thinking outside the box and a little more creatively about how we can find additional opportunities for housing.
Well, and of course, we did exceed our goals, but we're at the finish line anyway, because they were the 2025 goals. So we can certainly pat ourselves on the back a little bit. One of the challenges that we're facing as a district is, as you mentioned, affordable housing, and the fact that the trust fund is not going to actually fund any new projects in the upcoming cycle has been really challenging to really come on the heels of the celebration of us reaching our housing targets. It just sort of felt like a little bit of a gut punch. So we're still challenged in many ways, although it's nice to be ahead of our neighboring jurisdictions. Recent cases that drew a lot of public testimony seem to challenge the Zoning Commission's ability to run hearings and deliberate in a timely manner. How do you think your experience can improve the day-to-day functions of the Zoning Commission to better serve constituents and make timely decisions?
Well, when I went to Alexandria and then when I came back as planning director in Montgomery County, I was actually tasked in both of those places with looking at how to improve the development review process and to make it more efficient. while still making sure that there were going to be lots of opportunities for resident input and that it was an open process, but how to make the whole thing more efficient. And I like to believe that I succeeded in both of those jurisdictions. I got a lot of positive work done. Now, I'm going to be in a different role if I'm lucky enough to be appointed to the zoning commission. I'm not going to be a staff person. I'm going to be a commissioner. But I look forward, because I have good relationships with the Office of Planning. I'm looking forward to talking to them and to the fellow commissioners about things that we might be able to do to make the process more efficient. It's important to both hear everyone, to have adequate time to hear all viewpoints, but also to be able to efficiently make decisions that are then transmitted as formal resolutions and actions. So I don't know the answer because, again, when I join, again, if I'm lucky enough to join the zoning commission, I'm going to have a high learning curve. I'm going to want to learn more about exactly how the process works. And but I'm never someone who's shy about offering ideas and suggestions for improvements, and I look forward to doing that.
Thank you. And what do you think should be the ideal relationship between council and the zoning commission, especially when it comes to active cases?
Well, on active cases, my understanding, the zoning commission is sort of an adjudicatory board, and ex parte rules do come into play. So there's not supposed to be, a specific discussion about individual cases. However, one thing that we did in Montgomery County that I think was very valuable is we actually had an annual retreat with our council. The planning commissioners and the council would have an annual retreat, not to talk about specific cases, but to talk about, what are the big picture things moving forward that there needs to be cooperation on. I think it's really, really important for the zoning commission and the council to stay in close touch because, again, the comp plan is the council's document. You all have approved the comp plan. The zoning commission is in the role of implementing the council's comp plan. And so it's very important for the commissioners to, understand the council's direction and the council's viewpoints, again, on some of the big picture issues, not on specific regulatory cases.
That makes sense. That's very exciting, actually. I mean, we could do with another retreat, right, Chairman? We always love to retreat. Now, as a Cleveland Park resident, you're close to a lot of the most contentious debates about zoning and development. How do you feel about how your neighborhood has grown in your time there?
Well, it's interesting because I really think there are many, many good models in my neighborhood. When we were talking to residents in Westbard who were very concerned about the redevelopment of the Giant grocery store and that strip center that used to exist on Westbard Avenue, I actually drove in my own car, 3 or 4 of the residents, we all packed in, and we drove down to Cathedral Heights and the redevelopment of the Giant grocery store that had happened in Cathedral Heights with the addition of more housing and more retail. And I showed them this as an example that we weren't talking about overwhelming the Westbard community. We were talking about adding a really, really exciting mix of uses. So I've used my own neighborhood as an example. We also, again, I'm very proud that we have a transitional housing facility that is right next to the police station. That went in with, I know, some controversy, but it has been tremendously successful. And the families and the residents in that transitional housing facility are really able to benefit from being in this mixed use area. They can walk to the grocery store, they can walk to other businesses, they can walk to a restaurant or a Starbucks or whatever. So I actually think that Cleveland Park has been moving in a good direction. It needs to continue moving in that direction. I truly believe that, I know there's been controversy about Connecticut Avenue, but I truly believe that there can be more housing and more activity along Connecticut Avenue if it's well designed. This is where my interest in design excellence and architecture comes up. I do believe that you can find a middle ground between interests in things like historic preservation, as well as the need for more housing and a greater mix of uses through good design. And I, am hoping that there will be opportunities to have those conversations.
Wonderful. One last question. Director Cozart was asked the same question. How long do you think the district's new comprehensive plan should be? How many pages?
Oh, how many pages? Well, we worked hard on our, again, Thrive Montgomery 2050, which is for a jurisdiction of about 1.1 million people and a much larger geographic area and lots of different communities, is about, I think, 170 pages long in total, and that includes illustrations. We also have, appendices that have some of the much more detailed studies that were done that support the overall document. But the document itself, I think 100 to 150 pages, maybe something in that ballpark.
Seems like a good goal, something you can take a bite out of. I think our last one was around 1,000 pages here. So very good. Thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember. Well, that does lead me to asking, why do you characterize our comprehensive plan as a very good document? I think it's like way too long, conflicting policies.
I think it's a good document because of the vision it lays out. And it's one of the same things we tried to accomplish in Thrive Montgomery, which is really focusing future growth along corridors where there is transit already or will be transit. And I think that is, I think that's the future for the district. And I think that's the future for Montgomery County.
Okay, so it's more the themes or the focus of the plan. I did want to clarify this. In Montgomery County, the county council makes land use decisions, correct?
They make planning decisions. The review of regulatory cases, whether they be what you would call a planned unit development, we call an optional method project plan or site plan. Those are made by the planning board, the 5 members of the planning board. And if there is anyone who's unhappy with that, it goes, the appeal is directly to the courts. The master plans go to the council and they vote on all master plans and actually on all rezonings as well.
And on rezonings.
And on rezonings, yes. The planning board makes a recommendation, but the council does the rezoning. But it's very different in Montgomery County because typically what happens is after a master plan is approved, there is a sort of overall rezoning done of the land covered by the master plan. So when we did the West Bard master plan, immediately after the plan, literally the next month typically, all of the zones recommended in the plan are applied. And so there aren't very many individual rezonings. In Maryland, you do a rezoning only if there is a change or a mistake. And the plan process has a much bigger role in Maryland in general and Montgomery County specifically. A master plan almost has its own kind of legislative authority. And it, again, is typically followed up with a rezoning that implements the recommendations in the master plan. So you don't have folks coming in asking for individual rezonings. It's just a very different apples and oranges kinds of
Sure,
process.
but part of what I was getting at was to what extent the Montgomery County Council is involved in the zoning process. And it is more so than here in the district, the Independent Zoning Commission.
Yes, in the sense that they approve master plans and then they approve the rezonings that happen to implement the master plans. Yes.
I have a few more quick questions. Do you have a sense of how much time will be involved with being on the zoning commission?
I understand that it is very time consuming, but I am happily retired and believe I have the time to devote.
All right, well, I was going to ask if you have the time. And this was in the pre-hearing questions I sent you, but I asked this anyway. Do you have any outstanding tax liabilities or other debt owed to the district?
No,
Do you foresee that there could be any conflicts of interest while you're on the commission?
not that I can think of. I will be very upfront. I have done a little bit of consulting in Montgomery County only with groups who are doing projects that are near and dear to my heart. I'm working, for example, with an African-American church in the Gaithersburg, generally the Gaithersburg area. It's called Emery Grove United Methodist, and they are working to build an affordable housing project on some land adjacent to the church. And I have been consulting with them on that. But I have not, and I do not anticipate any consulting work with anyone in the District of Columbia or who does business with the District of Columbia.
If there were to be a conflict of interest that arose, how would you handle it?
Well, number one, if there was a job offered to me in consulting that had to do with the District of Columbia, I would turn it down. I would not take that job. And secondly, if something did arise on a particular project that seemed to be a conflict, I would recuse myself.
I think I'm out of questions. Let me double check. I think we're good.
Good.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, the record in this matter closes at 5 p.m. on September 30th. The council meets on October 1st. It's my intention, unless something that I can't foresee comes up, that I would be presenting this for the committee of the whole markup and then council approval on the 1st.
Thank you.
So that's why the record will close on the 30th, which is notice to anybody who may be paying attention that if they have anything to say, they have to say it before the 30th. Thank you very much for your testimony today and also for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
With that, the time is 1